Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. It's been 5 years since he killed us. It was a good Saturday, like a really good one. Everyone woke up in a good mood and everything was going well. Our children were especially happy because I was making them fun-shaped pancakes. He played with them while I cooked. We had a wonderful breakfast together. We went to the park that afternoon. They played and we talked. He said he loved me and was happy. He was happy, and so was I, our children happy and healthy. I thought life couldn't get any better. We got back home and we ordered in. We laughed at the table. Our youngest daughter discovered she loved mushrooms even though they looked weird to her at first. After dinner, we played with them and made a mess of our living room. But it was a good mess, a happy mess. We put the kids to bed early and watched TV. I fell asleep on the couch. Then I woke up around midnight. I went to our bedroom and he wasn't there. I checked the kids' bedroom, then I went back to our bedroom thinking that he went out to get a bite or something. I tried to sleep but I couldn't. After an hour of waiting, I called him. At first the phone rang like normal. The second time I called, it went straight to voicemail. He didn't come home that night, and that morning I discovered that a lot of his things were missing. I called everyone we knew, no one knew where he was. I didn't speak to him for over a week, if you can call a single text saying don't contact me as speaking. Then he finally spoke to his sister as she had threatened to contact the police if he didn't. She was the one to tell me he's never coming back and that he wants a divorce. A few days after that, I was contacted by the law firm he had hired. A year later we were divorced. I didn't once see him nor did his 4 kids. I was blindsided by this because we were happy. He even agrees we were happy. I was heartbroken and it would be a lie not to say that I am still wounded. Then after 5 years of no contact, he wants to talk. Says he misses his kids, and now he regrets destroying us. Destroying our children. He killed us for nothing. He destroyed our children. They cried for him every day. They reached out to him on social media but he blocked them. They called him and he would block them more. They watched him live a life without them, a life where there was no space for them. But now he misses them, and he wants his family back. I can never forgive him. He doesn't get a second chance to break our hearts. There is no redemption and there is no reconciliation for him. Edit. When he left, we spoke only through lawyers or through his sister who hates his guts. And occasionally I would hear about him from the wives of his 2 former friends. When asked by all these people, his answer was always, I just wanted a new start. I wanted things to be different. I wanted new experiences. When asked if he was happy in the marriage, he would say he was happy. He always said our marriage was a good one, and he never spoke badly about me. It always kills me to hear that because I can accept him being unhappy, but hearing he broke our hearts just because he wanted something different just really breaks me into pieces. As for the was there another woman question, yes there were, apparently there were many. I found that out during the divorce process, as I never suspected him of cheating. So I had to have it spelled out to me by my lawyers. He couldn't even be there in the room, so he zoomed in from the cruise he was on with his then new woman. He pretty much dated a new woman every few months. The younger women he was chasing rarely dated him, and if they did, they were done with him within a month. Then on to the next one. He tried to live a life way beyond his means and abilities. That's pretty much how he got himself into financial difficulties. Then he got engaged to his old colleague who I actually knew. She broke up with him because he wouldn't stop cheating on her, which was ironic since she was hooking up with him when he was a married man. I don't understand what she expected to be different. I know that the past 2-ish years haven't been easy for him, as he lost his job, his cars, and was foreclosed on. I know he isn't coming back for genuine reasons, but because being with me and the kids was the last time he was really happy. He wants the familiarity of us, not because he loves us and is remorseful. Now for the top comments. They reached out to him on social media but he blocked them. They called him and he would block them more. There's some things that simply can't be forgiven, and this is one of them. That's literally one of the most painful things a parent could do to you, purposefully choose to cut you off. It shows they don't care if you're alive or dead. Screw your ex-husband, your children, and you deserve a happy life. And child support. I hope he is paying the child support. Not likely considering. He is a trash human. He is trash financials per OP. You are right on the money. He paid for the first 6 months and then started to avoid paying and was always in arrears. Eventually he stopped paying altogether. He owes me over $80,000 in child support. I used to manage all our finances, so without me, he quickly spiraled into debt. From what I know through his sister, he is in debt for nearly $200,000. The majority of that debt was due to him opening a restaurant and bar right before the pandemic hit, and by the mid-2020, it had to close down. Are your children aware? What do they think? I am sorry for you. I would never come back from this either. It takes major audacity to pull this crap. I don't think the kids should be aware just yet. Not sure how old they are now, but when they are 18, OP should give them his info and let them know they can contact him if they so choose. In the meantime, take note of him reaching out now, so when the kids are old enough, they know exactly when he went from blocking them on social media and hanging up on them, to deciding he deserved to have them in his life. He will try and make it out as though OP kept them from being in touch. And if they aren't already, get some therapy for the kids. As a child who was in a similar situation to OP's children, I highly disagree. OP shouldn't badmouth him to her children, but she also shouldn't keep things from them. Our mother never spoke terribly of him, but she was always very transparent when we had questions. I'd have felt so betrayed if my mother knew how terrible he was in everything he'd done, but kept it all from us. It's better to be prepared for the type of person he is than to have it sprung upon you all at once when you're finally an adult. It can be extremely difficult to process. I'm extremely grateful that my mother always answered our questions objectively and never tried to hide anything from us. I honestly can't imagine how difficult it would have been if she hadn't told us anything, and then when we're adults to finally say, here's your father's information, you can contact him now, and then hear who knows what from him. And in my case, when he finally reached out to me as an adult, he spun the most atrocious lies about how he tried so hard to be in our lives, but our mother prevented it. I think OP should be clear with her children and answer all questions they might have. Obviously within reason, but I absolutely 100% disagree with keeping it from them until they come of age. That can be so damaging. And I agree completely with some commenter, it's an excellent way to alienate her kids if she doesn't keep them informed, again within reason. But yes to therapy. I think putting them in therapy as children to help them process everything safely would be an excellent idea. I do not badmouth him at all. My kids like you really had their heart broken by him repeatedly. So even if I wanted to, I wouldn't need to. Just like you, my kids begged me to call him, and we did many times, and he would literally block our numbers, and if we managed to get through, he immediately would shout at me saying, anything you need to tell me, you tell it to my lawyer, and that was when he was being polite. When my oldest got a phone, he called him regularly, and even created himself a fake Instagram account, because ex-husband had him blocked. He figured out with a friend of his where he lived at the time, and they went. His dad literally shut the door in his face. My son never even told me. I only found out because his friend was worried about him. Eventually, after all the heartache, they just gave up reaching out to him. It's one thing to want to end your marriage, it's another thing to be so cruel to your own flesh and blood. My father did that to us. I was 14, my brothers were 16, 12, 10, and 8. We grew up, got married, had kids. Try explaining to your kids that yes, they do have a grandfather, but they'll never know him. My dad is in his 70s now and all alone. And now he wants to see us and meet his grandchildren. He doesn't want to be an old man and die alone. We all told him to F off. Next story. My daughter's bully married into our family. If you or someone you know are struggling with an eating disorder or self-harm, please seek assistance in your battle. You are not alone. My daughter was a sophomore when the bullying began. I'm unsure why Ella and her friends began targeting her. They made comments about her body, her nose, everything. My daughter developed an eating disorder and began to rapidly lose weight because of the intense exercises and long fasting periods she forced herself to endure. Ella and her friends showed no mercy though and continued to harass my daughter. My daughter began engaging in destructive behaviors and at one point was hospitalized. It took a lot of fighting, but I was able to get the school to punish these girls for my daughter's suffering. When my daughter graduated, I thought Ella would be a person of her past. But then her older brother began dating her when my daughter was wrapping up her 3-year in university. It hurt my daughter so much that her brother would date someone who tormented her so closely to death. There were nights where would cry herself to sleep, wondering why this was going on. It hurt me as a mother to watch this happen. My son ended up marrying Ella. I have allowed this, but kept my distance from Ella. I recently hung out with my daughters-in-law and daughter without inviting Ella. I have 3 other sons, and 2 of them are also married. At a recent gathering, one of my daughter-in-law expressed gratitude because I had given her an opportunity to get out of the house because of stress with the kids. I planned a girls' night out with my daughter and 2 other daughters-in-law, and we kept this secret from Ella. Ella eventually got the full story out of my eldest son and was hurt. She asked me what she had ever done to make me treat her differently from the others, so I let her have it. I told her that her treatment of my daughter in their high school years is why I will never view her as a member of this family. I told her that I had already been kind enough to allow her to be near my family and that she should not push her luck. She left with my son, and he later told me that she cried herself to sleep that night. Ella never gave a proper apology to my daughter for the damage she had done. She even jokes about their past in the form of dark humor. I fear my son may go no contact, but I will not chase him because he chose this awful person over his sister. She hasn't been doing it anymore, but there were no attempts to make amends either. Why did her brother start dating her? Didn't he know the trauma she caused? Right. The brother is a POS for even associating with that person in the first place. She ruined his sister's self-esteem and self-image. It's messed up. My sister married my stalker and gave him access to my life. Some siblings really just don't care. It's sick. This reminds me of my ex-roommate's sister, who married the guy who assaulted her. They had 3 kids and are still together to this day. I was always distant when going to their house with my roommate, never comfortable in that house at all. She talks about it with dark humor. Isn't that what the victim does to cope, not the one who caused the trauma? Good on you for choosing your daughter over this woman. And if your son goes no contact, it'll hurt, but it's for the best. He chose to marry the woman who nearly tormented your daughter to death knowingly, and that's so gross. If I was his sister, I would never forgive that. Ella can cry herself to sleep all she wants. Sounds like she deserves to cry. Right. I audibly said you can't be freaking serious upon reading that line. She cannot be that daft or detached from reality that she thinks this family forgot what she did to a member of them almost to death, especially if she thinks she can joke about it to this family too. Crazy thing is, most bullies are that daft. The majority of them don't actually remember being awful because that's too hard to cope with. So the brain will rewire the memory so they aren't the bad guy. Try confronting any of your high school bullies. You'll probably will get something along the lines, "I'm sorry you felt way about it, but I don't remember us ever having a problem." Not sure who is worse here, your son or his wife. Boo frickin' who that she cried herself to sleep. Deal with it. She's a menace, she still won't apologize because she's not sorry. As an adult, if you did crappy things and you get the opportunity to apologize, you do it. If you don't, it shows lack of growth and maturity. She's still the mean girl by joking about it. Horrible behavior has consequences, but instead, she'll blame you or most likely your daughter. Last story. My son wants to be a part of my life again, and I don't know if I should let him. My 41 male family situation is a bit difficult. My ex-wife and I have been together for many years. During these years, our life was okay. It wasn't perfect, but good enough that we decided to have children. She had been horrible towards me basically the entire time. But being the naive guy I was, I thought it would be a normal thing and got used to it. This is important later. We had 2 children, my daughter 21 female and my son 19 male. Over the years when we grew up, our house started to get 2 different camps with totally different interests. It would be my daughter and me, and my son and his mom. I always bonded better with my daughter than with him as we shared many interests. And the same applied to my son and his mother. He was an absolute mama's boy. These camps soon turned into rivalries that also caused huge arguments here and there, and not rarely my ex-wife would get physical. Over the years I suppressed my own emotions because I knew that if I'd let them happen, I'd probably end up leaving my wife, and I never wanted my children to grow up with their parents separated. I always thought to myself that since she never got physical when the children were there, they hopefully wouldn't get traumatized by it. And I took it for many years, but then something happened that went far beyond the borders. 3 years ago, my daughter introduced her girlfriend to us, and she officially came out as lesbian. My ex-wife and my son reacted so insanely hostile towards that I decided that I had enough. Incredibly homophobic comments, and my son once even slapped her. I filed for divorce, and I moved with my daughter into our own home. I was financially stable to take care of her, and I knew that she deserved a loving environment no matter what. Shortly afterwards, my son began to spread the rumor that my ex-wife filed for divorce because I allegedly cheated on her, and for some reason many people believed him, except for my daughter and some really good friends. I felt hurt and betrayed. Every attempt of calling him and talking to him about this failed, and I decided to take the drastic step and disinherit him from my will as a consequence, and go no contact since he didn't want to talk to me anyway. He was still in his mother's will, so I thought he was fine. By doing this, I also cut the contact with my ex-wife. My daughter was surprisingly fine with this. I thought she would miss her brother and her mom more often, but she didn't. I saw how happy she was with her girlfriend who visited us several times, and for 3 years we didn't hear from them. Fast forward to yesterday when I received a call from my son. He somehow found out my number. He said that he knows that he probably doesn't deserve the chance, but if he could come over to talk. I was still angry at him, but since he is my son, I decided to at least give him a chance to explain himself. When he came over, I noticed that he had bruises on his face. I sat him down on the couch when he started slowly apologizing. His face was completely without any emotion at first, and then all of a sudden he broke down crying, telling me how sorry he was and that he wants to be with me. He explained that when I left, she began mistreating him too. She would often beat him and blame him for everything that happened. He said he is also sorry for the homophobic BS towards his sister and just wishes to hug her and apologize. She wasn't home at the time. He said that he did it because he was angry at me for allegedly tearing apart the family. That's what he thought all that time was the truth, but now he knows that it was wrong. I told him that I understand him when it comes to his mother because I was in a similar position, but I also need time to think about this and ask his sister first before I do anything. He wiped the tears from his face and nodded. He then gave me his number and left. And now I am ambiguous. He is my son, but on the other hand, he hurt and betrayed me really bad. What I have to do is to talk to my daughter about this. If she agrees to let her brother live with us, then I consider it. But only then. Now for the advice. I feel like he's a victim and at least has diminished responsibility for his actions. Not saying he's completely innocent, so maybe the best way to help is getting him somewhere safe, whether that's with you or somewhere else, and into some therapy. And he was around 16 when he took sides after being, I guess, indoctrinated. When I was 16, I was very emotional and prone to taking sides in my parents' relationship issues, but I wouldn't necessarily agree with those decisions now. In any event, he's looking for help, and he desperately needs it. Well, he definitely can't continue living with her. If he can't move in with you, arrange for him to stay with a family member, or pay rent for a room somewhere if you can afford it. Don't think of it as a betrayal. Your wife twisted him since childhood. He was manipulated. I agree. It's really hard, and what did was horrible. But he's also a victim of your ex-wife. It's a great thing that at 19, he has finally come to his senses and to make amends. Lol, how about taking some responsibility instead of pinning it all on your wife? You raised him too, or you should have. Most people just shouldn't even have kids. Edit. So many of you misunderstood what I said. You assumed I'd just let him stay with his horrible mom. No, I do not. That wasn't the question. Of course I'm going to help him getting out of there. The question is if I let him stay with us. I might be able to forgive him, but if my daughter says she feels unsafe with him around, I help him finding a different place to stay. Currently he stays with a friend so he's safe. Back then, he wanted to stay with his mom and he was the one that initiated the no contact by not answering any of my calls and completely deleting me out of his life. And considering she never was physically harming him or my daughter, I assumed she is able to control herself towards her children. And I truly thought it would be way less traumatizing if their parents would stay together, because I know what it's like growing up between separated parents. I only did what I thought was the best for them, and I know that I was wrong there. But calling me a horrible parent for not immediately reconciling and putting my daughter's concerns first isn't right either. I do want to help him no matter the outcome. He is still my son, but letting him stay with me is something that I simply have to talk through with my daughter.